Welcome back. Today we have the results-based rankings following Week 9 of the college football season. This is last week's rankings. South Carolina was supposed to be in there at 23. I just missed evaluating them last week. This is the new ranking. BYU, with their win over UCF, moves up to number 1. And Miami is now ahead of Oregon, number 2. Oregon falls despite the win over Illinois, and I think that's because the model's estimation of home field advantage increased, and Oregon has played all of its biggest games at home, so as home games are devalued in the ranking, Oregon has dropped to number 3. Georgia is still at 4. Iowa State is still at 5. Penn State, with the win at Wisconsin, moves up to number 6. Pittsburgh, with the win over Syracuse, moves up to 7. Texas A&M, with the win over Notre Dame, moves up to number 8. Indiana falls down behind Ohio State despite their win. And also despite Ohio State winning by a smaller margin against Nebraska than Indiana did. The Minnesota-Maryland game really hurt Indiana. Maryland was blown out against Minnesota. That makes Indiana's game against Maryland look worse, and that has resulted in them falling down to 10. Kansas State is there at 11. Alabama at 12. Not a lot of change there, even though Alabama beat Missouri. Notre Dame, with their win over Navy, moves up to 13. LSU, after the loss to Texas A&M, drops to 14. Tennessee's at 15. SMU at 16, Texas at 17, despite beating Vanderbilt, not moving up. Colorado is at 18. That's really where the gap is between Texas at 17 and Colorado at 18. Clemson, who was on the other side of the gap last week, has slid down into the pack. So Colorado is now at the top of the pack of everyone outside those top teams, following their win over Cincinnati. Boise State up to 20 with their win over UNLV. That was a road win, I believe. Ole Miss beat Oklahoma. They're at 21. Illinois, despite not being competitive with Oregon, didn't drop a whole lot. Louisville, with their win over Duke, moves back in up to 23. And South Carolina is still there. They didn't play last week. Missouri, despite being blown out by Alabama, still hanging on in the rankings. I still do not have any teams from the American ranked. Well, Navy just lost, so that wasn't competitive, so that thing is perfectly justified. Army, even though they're undefeated, they've just played really bad teams. Really everything on their schedule outside of Notre Dame and Navy is pretty awful, and I don't think is worth putting them in the top 25 for. It isn't with the system I use. The only team from last week's top 25 to fall out was Vanderbilt, who lost to Texas. There just weren't the teams that were close to moving in didn't win, and so there wasn't anyone to replace these teams like Missouri, who lost, and South Carolina, who didn't play. There are 3 games this week involving 2 of my ranked teams. Number 6, Penn State is hosting number 9, Ohio State. Number 7, Pittsburgh is going to number 16, SMU. And number 19, Clemson is hosting number 23, Louisville. There are also 2 other games in which one of my ranked teams will be facing a major test. Number 4, Georgia plays its neutral site rivalry game against Florida. And number 21, Ole Miss goes to Arkansas. Everyone else, you better not lose or you're dropping.